What is the best saxophone in the world? If money were no object, would it be a new Yamaha, the new Selmer Supreme, or a Yanagasawa Elite model? To find this answer, I actually went to
Dr. Wally, I presume. Your search is futile. The greatest saxophone in the world is in fact vintage. I hold the greatest collection of vintage saxophones, and you will never find them.
Wait, Tyler?
No,
Tyler Anderson from Get a Sax.
no.
I'll find you.
For appointment only.
My search led me to Winston-Salem, the Camel City. Dumb name, dumber public transport. A hot tip from a DoorDasher hopped up on goofballs led me to the abandoned Haynes factory. Could this be it? Could this be the famed studio of GetASax.com? There was only one way to find out.
Hey man, wanna try some saxophones?
Let's start with a 1954 King Super 20. Beautiful engraving, pearls on the side keys. It may be one of the most beautiful saxophones ever made, if not, in my opinion, the most beautiful man-made object ever made. This horn, maybe more than any other, defined the sound of the alto saxophone in the 20th century. Cannonball Adderley played this on Something Else and Kind of Blue. Among collectors, it's known as the Series 2, though King never used that terminology. Double socket neck, sterling silver. It plays with punch and beauty. The tone is a bit fuller, more spread than the modern Selmer, but it has perhaps more power than any horn I've ever played. It has tons of front-end punch, immediate response, but also when you relax the airstream, it sings with almost like a gentle flute-like quality.
So Tyler, there are so many new horns on the market, new coming out every day. Why vintage? What's the argument?
That's a huge argument for vintage saxophones is the build quality. When these saxophones were made, they were made at a time when, in general, stuff was made better. So in terms of what that means, with a saxophone, it's going to mean sturdier metals,
Right.
metal screws instead of plastic screws.
Oh, yeah.
And this means that if you get any work done on your horn, it's going to last a lot longer. A difficulty with newer saxophones can be that they use softer metals. If you get one of those overhauled, the metals on those bend really quickly, so it's going to go out of alignment a lot faster than an older horn that they're kind of built like tanks.
Yeah, some of these are pushing 100 years old and they still hold up and play like a dream.
They still hold up and play like a dream, and they might need a little bit of work, but the work that you put into it is going to last for some time.
Yeah. So say I fall in love with a vintage horn, or we want to start experimenting with vintage horns. What's the price like? Is this going to be way more expensive than like a new Yamaha or Selmer?
So great news on that front. Vintage saxophones are often much cheaper, and I mean much cheaper than newer saxophones. A great example of this is the new Selmer Supreme, which is going to set you back around $7,000, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then typically right out of the factory, that horn is going to need some work on it if you want it to be playing its best.
Right.
Now, contrast that with something like a vintage Conn 6M, and you could spend under $2,000 for that horn and get an amazing playing saxophone.
a very special vintage Selmer, the Selmer Dorsey. Now, only about 70 of these were made for Jimmy Dorsey and his orchestra around 1939. It's got the left side bell keys like the older Radio Improved, but some of the upgraded keywork of the balanced action as well. The sound is very unique. It's more spread, a bit broader than the modern Selmer, but has an incredible flexibility and very beautiful tone palette.
So one of my favorite things about playing and owning vintage horns is you're owning a little bit of American history, which for the jazz nerds, it's fun. And also the engraving, you get like literal handcrafted art on some of these horns.
You know, you look at some of these vintage horns and the engravings on them, and it seems impossible that someone could do that. I mean,
By hand, it's the craftsman. And yeah, and you could get naked women.
Scandalous.
The Conn artist model. They started making these around 1932, and here we have a very rare gold-plated with more extensive, beautiful Art Deco engraving. Now, these are sometimes referred to as the 6M or lady face due to the engraving. Conn actually called this the artist model. It has the underslung octave with a micro-tuner neck. It has incredibly fast, agile keywork, and also one of the richest, broadest tone qualities of any saxophone I've ever played.
So one of the reasons I've always loved dealing with Brian and you at Get a Sax is if I want a truly overhauled horn, or if I want to play something that's in ready-to-go pro playing shape, you have a lot of options for that. And that's not always been the case when I bought vintage horns elsewhere. So when you guys say overhaul, it feels very different than what other people claim an overhaul is. So what's different about the Get a Sax? How do you guys go about the overhaul process?
So, not all overhauls are created equally.
Right.
Yeah, so we have sent saxophones all around the nation to repair techs. And so we have a list that Brian has vetted of some of the best saxophone techs in the nation.
Including Matt Storer.
Yeah, who's incredible.
The Cigar Cutter. Part of the Super Sax line made by Selmer in the early 1930s. It's got its name due to its unique shaped octave mechanism, which resembles a cigar cutter. I'll take them for the word. I don't know. I don't cut my cigars. I eat them whole. The keywork doesn't feel as refined as the later Selmer models we've come to know and love, but there's a tone you just can't find in modern instruments. It's more diffuse than the later Selmers, It has this sweetness to it. You punch it and it doesn't scream, it sings. The King Zeyphr Special. This immaculate model comes from 1937. You can see the full pearl key touches, engraving on the key cups. Beautiful, dark nitrocellulose lacquer. It rivals the Super 20 in its beauty, and as a matter of fact, in sound and playability, this model became the Super 20 with some changes in the key guards and octave mechanism. It has a sterling silver neck and has a free-blowing complex sound that is really like nothing else I've played. What's really interesting is as you go higher, it doesn't become thin or overly strident or focused. It actually seems to broaden and become more complex. A really fascinating playing experience. The Yamaha 62 purple logo, named for that purple silkscreen logo on the bell. This was Yamaha's second professional saxophone following the 61. Now, this came out in the early 1970s when Yamaha brought on Eugene Rousseau, legendary concert saxophonist, as a design consultant. Now, this has undergone many changes over the years, but this original one holds a special place in my heart. It has an incredible free-blowing feel. It's centered, it's complex, and it's actually the closest saxophone I've played in sound and feel to my Selmer Mark VI.
Huge thanks to Brian and Tyler for setting this up. So if you're in the market to meet your vintage soulmates, reach out to Brian and tell him Wally sent you, and he'll treat you right. I mean, he'll treat you right regardless, but still, go practice.